In 1965, Vietnam seemed like just another foreign war, but it wasn't. It was different in many ways, and so were those who did the fighting. In World War II, the average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19. No, 19.
In Vietnam, he was 19. In Vietnam, he was 19.
We all knew it was either going to be the most enormous record in the history of the world or do absolutely nothing.
When you hear it on the radio and it is a contrast to everything that's going on around it, and it's brilliant and it's, you know, it makes you kind of stop and listen to it. That's what pop music's all about.
And I just think it was something totally different, you know. For 1985, it was a sound that no one had really heard before. I was a hi-fi salesman in a place called Sloane Square in Chelsea, and I became very interested in video. And a friend of mine bought a small synthesizer, a monophonic synthesizer. He could only play one note at a time on it. And I convinced him that he really needed to swap his synthesizer for my video camera. He did, and I started sort of putting like one notes and things down onto tape, and then bouncing cassette decks across so that I could make a chord out of, you know, this monophonic synthesizer. As soon as I was able to sort of buy a new synthesizer, I did. I mean, any money I had went on equipment. That's all I spent it on. And I was able to buy a keyboard that could play chords. Then I bought a small drum machine. And I mean, it went on to the fact that I actually left my job the first day I had a mortgage to actually pursue music. And it was with a guy called Charlie Gillett that I very first started off.
I just had never met anybody so completely focused on succeeding, but not on any terms. It's like succeeding but doing something that is out of him. And it's therefore, when he did eventually succeed, it was totally a kind of legitimate expression of the person that he was. The fact that it was such a brilliant, inventive record was almost like a bonus, but he was always going to do it somehow.
I remember looking in the newspaper and seeing there was a program on called Vietnam Requiem, and it was all about how young the kids were going to Vietnam. And I just had this mad idea, I wonder if it would make a record. So what I did, I taped it. And the same night that I taped the program, I actually went down into my studio and I started up with a drum beat. And I left it, I went to bed and thought no more of it. And I came down the next day and I thought, wow, this sounds quite good. And so for the next week I sort of worked on it, but there was still something missing from it, and that was the fact that there was no hook line, there was no chorus. I had hired a thing called an emulator, which was one of the first sampling synthesizers. And I thought, well, what's the main thing of this record? And I thought, well, it's got to be the fact that these kids are so young.
You're 18 years old and you're wearing somebody's brains around on your shirt because they got their head blown off right next to you.
And I started adding some of these voices in and stuff.
They got their head blown off. They got their head blown off right next to you. They got their head blown off right next to you.
In World War II, the average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19.
So I put the word 19 into the keyboard, and obviously you got the sort of like 19. I thought I'll leave it for a while, and I left it for about an hour, went and had some tea and stuff, and I came back down because my ears were getting a bit over the top by that time, you know, all this technology I'm using. And I came back and I forgot that I did it. And when it came up, I thought, wow, that is the hook, that is the chorus, and then at 19, and that was really how the whole thing came about.
In Vietnam, he was 19. In Vietnam, he was 19. In Vietnam, he was 19.
I then sort of, got a girl to sing a little bit of a chorus that I wrote just to put some icing on the cake. And you had all these big orchestra stabs and bam, just to make it sound dynamic. It was supposed to sound frightening, and that was really how it all appeared from a TV program called Vietnam Requiem.
All we knew was it was brilliant. I can't say that I realised it was going to be as successful as it was. The one person that I'm clear immediately recognised its full potential was Ken Grunbaum at Chrysalis. He saw a possible number one. I heard about that. I thought, well, that would be nice, but I didn't know that it was going to happen.
Paul had a hit with a kind of jazz funk instrumental called Rainforest, and had played us 4 or 5 new songs in that vein. And then there was this kind of thing on the end of the tape, and he said, oh, I taped a TV show the other night and I've been messing around with it. And it was really, really rough, but as soon as you heard that, 19, it was like, what? It was so different. And it took quite a bit of work to refine it, but it stood out a mile, from everything else. And I remember that as my first occasion.
Yeah, I think I probably heard it as it was getting into the more sort of refined stage. But what you remembered was it on 2 levels. One, it was very, very powerful musically, and it really did sort of blow you into the back of the chair. And then 2, when you re-listened and you heard what people were saying, you listened to the facts and figures, then it was really moving.
According to a Veterans Administration study, half of the Vietnam combat veterans suffer from what psychiatrists call post-traumatic stress disorder. Many vets complain of alienation, rage, or guilt. Some succumb to suicidal thoughts.
I was at that time a DJ at Capital Radio. So we're talking about 1985. And so I was witness to an extraordinary, what felt like an event, which was a white label 12-inch came into the station for the dance DJ as an advanced promotion copy. When he played it, somebody else who was a daytime disc jockey heard him, so the next day that DJ played this white label spontaneously, not playlisted or anything. The DJ who was going to follow him heard it, and it was a relay. Each one had to play this record. And that's when you hear that happening, you know you've got something amazing.
Well, the funny thing was, the day that 19 came out was the end of the Vietnam War, the 10th anniversary of it. And so straight away, Channel 4 News knock on my door. And when you release a record on national news, it does have quite a lot of impact. I mean, that must have saved Chrysalis Records thousands and hundreds of thousands of pounds in marketing. It just bang. And from that, and all of a sudden the radio play we got and stuff, bang, we're in the chart at number 4. So before they'd done much marketing, we was already the highest new entry that week.
You didn't plan this date?
Well, what happened was, someone happened to notice in Chrysalis that it was the 10th anniversary on this certain date. And so they held it back 2 weeks. It was fate and luck and stuff. And
the Vietnam War has inspired an unusual pop record due to be released next week. All the indications are that it's going to be a big hit.
The highest new entry at 4, Paul Hardcastle at 19.
I thought people should know, because it was quite a relevant point, that the fact that, in World War II, the average age was 23, and, like in Vietnam, they was only 19. And I remembered what I was doing at 19. I was going around to clubs and having a great time. And seeing some of this footage of like people being sort of like, blown up and stuff, I just thought, wow. I just thought it was something totally different.
Almost 800,000 men are still fighting the Vietnam War.
Then all of a sudden, all around Europe, we found that we was going to number one. We went to 13 countries at number one. And wherever it didn't go to number one, it was usually number two, like Australia, Italy. So it was an absolute massive record.
It was that combination of a brilliant idea, a novelty, because nobody had played this game with voices in quite this way, and a very, very tough danceable rhythm. So this paradox of you were dancing in a dance club to a record which is reporting very serious material about the Vietnam War.
In 1965, Vietnam seemed like just any other foreign war, but it wasn't. It was different in many ways, and so were those who did the fighting. In World War II, the average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19. Well, this is my Pride and Joy disc. It's presented to Paul Hardcastle in recognition of 13 number ones. That's all the little flags there we went to number one in. That was from Germany. Then up there I think we've got Australia. I think this is Australia, if I remember rightly. Canada. That's Canada. New Zealand. All around the world here in 80 days. This one's from England. When it hit 250,000, then it went to 500,000. There. This is my prize here. This is the Ivor Novello Award, which is basically, it says on there, for International Hit of the Year. That was for record sales on singles for 1985, so I think I sold more singles than anyone else in England in 1985.
This was a do-it-yourself record, very, very much. He came up with the ideas himself. Somehow figured out what to do with those voices. He got a singer in, made the backing track. He did go and mix it in a professional studio, but the studio was the size of this room. It was a small, inexpensive place. It was not a kind of grand studio that people have in their mind when they think of commercial studios. So he was in every way the forerunner of all the studio-based people who have followed in their droves, right the way up to Fatboy Slim that we've got now. He was in many ways the pioneer of all these guys.
Just on the outside, dear, if you don't mind. Paul Hardcastle, this is the new number one, 19.
Yeah. In 1965, Vietnam seemed like just another foreign war, but it wasn't. It was different in many ways, and so were those who did the fighting. In World War II, the average age of the combat soldier was 26. In Vietnam, he was 19. In Vietnam, he was 19.
He's a producer, he remixes records, and he's number one.
Yes, for the second week running, Paul Hardcastle, 19.
And this has been a number one for 3 solid weeks.
Paul Hardcastle, sharper than Steve Wright's DJ. This is 19.
None of them received a hero's welcome.
And your guess is as good as mine as to what's going to be number one next week. Paul Hardcastle is still there, 4th week, 19.
World War II saw America unite behind her fighting men.
Well, that means, of course, that Paul Hardcastle is still number one. But what of next week?
Well, next week it's got to be the crowd, I think, but Mike Reed and Dixie Pitch will tell you about it. Meantime, here's this week's number one. Good night from Donovan Pops.
Unlike Vietnam, World War II saw the two wars were just as different on the front lines as they were back home.
And across here, there's some of the things from 1985, like we had Record of the Year for 19, obviously. Over here, in 1986, I won Record Producer, awarded to Paul Hardcastle. We won the Best Video in 1986. And over here, we've got another one, Outstanding International Disco Music Achievements, 1985 for Paul Hardcastle. And here's a disc from Holland.
Charts of 1985, particularly with his recording of the anti-war song 19. Now it looks as if 1986 is not going to be bad either. He starts it teamed up with Carol Kenyon. Don't waste my time. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Hardcastle, Carol Kenyon.
Terry Davis and Simon Mayo presenting his first show as well. I'll see you at 6:10 Saturday night on BBC One for the new series The Late Late Breakfast Show. And right now, by popular demand, we are releasing the theme tune from this year programme. It's called The Wizard. It's by Paul Hardcastle, and here's the video to go with it. See you soon. Bye-bye.
He's a cool dude. This is the band. See, this is where I need my inspiration from. That's the band I take on tour, you see.
Those were the days when the charts would allow you to put out a different remix every week.
Yeah.
So you could put out, I think we did, I can't remember, 4 or 5 different mixes on the records.
Mixes for every different territory as well.
So you could just keep putting another 12-inch out each week to try and maintain the number 1 slot and all that kind of thing. And I remember one of the ones we put out, I think we'd been number 1 for 3 weeks, where we decided we'd redo the video to a new mix to try and it was the first video that I'd ever edited, and I went and it stayed at number 1, and I thought, it's dead easy, this lark, isn't it? And it's never happened again since. 15 years later, I'm still waiting for that next one.
The voices were real people from the TV documentary, and unfortunately some of them were dead, so you couldn't seek clearance or permission from those people. So the legal department were concerned about that.
You've got now, samples are cleared at a moment's notice. At that time, there were no people clearing samples. They just,
record companies have departments that do that.
They don't. People were completely confused by this whole kind of like sampling thing. This is and there were some people that were like, this is going to be the death of the record business. Sampling is going to kill it all off.
The heaviest fighting of the past 2 weeks continued today, 25 miles northwest of Saigon.
I wasn't really sure what was going on.
The guy whose voice was on 19, it was a program, it was a video program, and it was made as that. All of a sudden, we have this big hit, and obviously in America, you can get sued for spitting on the sidewalk. So what happened was, some smart lawyer came along and said to him, well, what you want to say is that you gave permission for it to be in a video, in a TV program. That's correct, but it was never had permission to be on a pop record. And you can say, well, it's defamation of character. And I'm thinking, oh God, here we go. Just starting to sort of have something pretty good. Where there's a hit, there's a writ. And it was quite sort of depressing, really, that straight away, this guy. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we ended up giving him 4 points on the record, which is 4%. Because I couldn't be bothered going to court and stuff. Everything was new to me then, so I let him have it. So, he earned quite a bit out of it as well. Well, he earned a lot out of it.
None of them received the hero's welcome.
As the record company, go to the agent of the man who spoke the commentary, agree with the agent a fee, and then the man himself hears the record and he goes crazy. He's part of kind of middle-class New York. He doesn't like the sound of this record, as far as he's concerned, he's making fun of him. For us outside America, we don't know this man. We don't even think about it being a person. It's just a clever effect. But for him, this is mocking him. And you suddenly sort of see it from a different point of view. So he really wanted his voice taken off it. That's what he wanted. He wasn't really after the money. But eventually an agreement was reached whereby he was still on it, and he did get a share of the proceeds. But that was a scary moment.
All of South Vietnam, the enemy lost a total of 2,689 soldiers.
So, this is my pride and joy. This is my glass guitar. Let's see if I can light it up for you a bit. Oh, I brought this in Venice last year. The guy that makes it, he makes one apparently every 10 years. So I'm not really an art person, but I saw that and I just thought, well, I've got to have it. There is this thing about the number. It definitely is a strange thing. My mother-in-law, she's got a cabin, in a holiday home. It's number 19. Her house is number 19. It's not because everyone wants to move into this thing. It just seems to happen. My second record after 19 went in the charts at 19. It was a bit weird.
I think it's the essence of pop, first of all, that, they say about novelists, everybody's got one novel in them, which is usually something to do with themselves, and there's very, very few who can then get away from themselves, put their head into other characters and become a professional writer. And in the same way with pop, that you kind of grow up with pop music. It comes into you as a young child, as a teenager. You begin to form your influences and everything like that. And like as a sort of explosion, this thing comes out of you once. And I would say it was the norm to only have one big record in yourself. It's like strange and unusual and unreasonable to expect somebody to be able to do that more than once.
But you're a real dab hand at video releases. You went and asked Sir Laurence Olivier, didn't you, to take part in one?
Right.
Did you actually just go and knock on his door and say, would you do it?
No, we had to go through all the sort of boring channels of ringing up agents and all that sort of thing, But he was quite into actually doing it. That was on the Just for Money record, because he'd heard 19, and he doesn't actually listen to many pop records, but he'd actually heard that. I think his daughter let him hear it. And he was quite interested in it, so when we asked him, and also Bob Hoskins as well, to get on it, because they're both sort of heroes of mine.
What did you think when your heroes turned up and said, okay,
it was absolutely brilliant, sort of people that you've admired for a long time, and then when they say yeah, and you're working with them, it's really good.
It just proves a point that he caught something on tape that was real, and the sentiment of the record as well was real. And it was a first, and I don't think you can ever recreate that. And we tried with actors, and we tried with massive names like Laurence Olivier.
The Royal Mail train's loaded with over £2.5 million. That's more money than most people can dream of. But then, some people have big dreams.
What if we get caught? Of course we won't. But so we do. Don't worry, just think about the money. Imagine what you can do with it.
It's the last job I'm going to do. I'm in for this one and I'm out.
It's a life of luxury, my son.
I'm off to Spain and that's it.
Go to Spain. This is going to be the crime of the century.
What was special about 19 was it was real and it was organic, and it was just one moment where someone was inspired, and I just don't think you can recreate anything as special as that.
Paul Hardcastle on the keyboards thingy. This is D-Train.
think people will remember me for 19, obviously, yeah, because that was the big innovative record. But at the moment now, I mean, I'm into like what's called the adult market. And, you know, over the last sort of 3 years, we've done 2 million albums. So I'm selling more albums now than I was when 19 was out. See, Hardcastle can walk across water. I'm proud of what I've done over the last sort of 15 years. And that's what drives me on now to sort of carry on doing it, because I like what I'm doing. I'm not manufactured by anyone else. Well, in a nutshell, I do what I want, whereas, you know, a lot of people are told what to do.
We still do the same things. I still play records on the radio, I still run a publishing company, and we've just had a big hit, which is very much in the Paul Hardcastle idiom, by the group called Touch and Go, Would You?
I run a PR company now called Hall or Nothing. It's a press company, and we work with Manic Street Preachers, Radiohead, Stereophonics. We did Kylie last year, we do Eddie Izzard. So still in the same industry, but a different area.
I'm a partner in a small record label called Delirious Records, and we put out a lot of dance music, a lot of black music. I suppose some of the stuff in the area that's been influenced to some degree by 19. So, yeah, the influence I think probably lives on.
My album has come out as we speak 2 days ago. I've just formed my own record company in America called Hardcastle Records. It's based in Chicago. And this week, 2 days ago, the record went in their chart at number 30, and it looks like it's going to be a top 5 hit there already again. So that would be my 6th or 7th number 1 then.